Where are you from? What are you? You're so exotic. No, but like really, where are you from? You're from the Middle East, right? These are just a handful of comments and questions I get on a daily basis. But to be completely honest, the question, where are you from, is probably the most daunting question I could be asked, because I don't know how to properly answer it. You see, I was born in Caracas, Venezuela, a little bit over 22 years ago. I was born into a multicultural family. From my dad's side, we're Spaniards, and from my mom's side, we're a mix between Dutch and Lebanese. I grew up learning from these cultures, plus the one that I was born into. So, as you can see, my identity from the beginning was a melting pot of cultures. I just didn't understand it yet. In my eyes, I was just a little girl, just the same as the rest of the little girls that I went to preschool with. As far as I was concerned, we were all exactly the same. When I was 9, my parents, my brother and I moved to Mexico. And it was the culture shock that I needed to understand that I had to find other types of common ground in order to assimilate into my new environment. And I did not do well at first. For a 9-year-old, I was pretty angry at the fact that I had left my home country. I was put into an all-girls Catholic school, and due to my accent, let me briefly explain, Mexico and Venezuela have different accents. So if I were to ask for a birthday cake in Venezuela, I'd say torta de cumpleaños. But if I say torta de cumpleaños in Mexico, they'll probably give me a sandwich with a candle on top. So due to my accent, my height, and my overall look, I was cast aside by the other girls for being too different. I remember a lot of those first few weeks of school. I was not a happy kid, and I got into a lot of trouble. It really didn't start to get better until I started hanging out with a lifelong friend of mine. She really was the only one who introduced me little by little into the Mexican culture. And I learned and still learn a lot from her today. She taught me about the Mexican traditions her family practiced at home. She taught me how to eat spicy food and why she was so proudly Mexican. I envy her love for her nation. A few months after we had moved, I asked my mom if I didn't have a flag anymore, if I had lost my nationality when I moved. It broke my mom's heart to hear me say this, but she answered that I still bear Venezuela's flag in my heart, and that while I lived in Mexico, the Mexican people would be glad to lend me their flag. And this gave me hope that one day I will be able to bear the Venezuelan flag as proudly as I did the Mexican one. At this point, I finally started feeling a sense of belonging with my Mexican friends. I shared my culture with them, still identifying as a Venezuelan, and they shared their culture with me. And like this, I've made bonds that lasted over 14 years. I lived in Mexico up until I graduated high school in 2015. So I lived in Mexico for 11 years. And I decided to come to the United States to start my college education in Palm Beach State College. And this is when all those questions began. As a matter of fact, my brother and I have a tally on which country people will guess I'm from. And more often than not, this happens at a Macy's store. And yes, I am one of the weirdos who still shops there, regularly. The clerk will come up to me and ask if I need some help. I'll say no thanks. And after I say this, it's almost as if they're compelled to throw in the sentence, "You're from so-and-so, right?" The most common answers I get is Lebanon. some other Middle Eastern country, Spain, Brazil, a number of other Latin American countries, rarely do they guess right. As a matter of fact, I was once persistently asked if I was Russian. Now, that was weird. But by this point, however, I really wasn't sure what I identify as. I know I'm Venezuelan. I was born there, and I still carry a lot of the culture and the traditions. But at the same time, I also spent half my life in Mexico, where I fell in love with the culture, and I still have strong ties to the people and places there. But I'm not properly Mexican. So it was hard for me to find a niche. I had lived in 2 Latin American countries. I speak 2 languages fluently, and had never, ever lived in the United States. And this was a hurdle for people to understand for some reason, up until I met and made friends with the people in the International Student Club at Palm Beach State College. This is when I truly realized that experiences transcend borders, languages, cultures, religions. As much as our identity is tied to our culture, our beliefs, our heritage, it's our day-to-day lives and memories that make bonds between people regardless of our background. As soon as we started talking about the different feelings that we had gone through at different points of our lives, we started realizing how similar we were instead of our differences. I found unity by sharing what I knew. My culture, my food, my history, and with the friends that I made through the International Student Club, they were thrilled to have me experience new things in their culture, their history, and their food. It was about learning from each other and enriching ourselves in the process. In this increasingly interconnected world that we live in, it is more important than ever to remember that the nation that we were born in is just happenstance. That we as human beings cannot be solely defined by arbitrary geopolitical boundaries. Therefore, I propose a new question to be asked when inquiring about one's past, birth, or heritage. Ask, what's your story? Number 1, it allows the person the creative freedom to detail who they are in their own terms. Number 2, it allows the person to keep private whatever they want to keep private. Number 3, it doesn't allow the other person to check you into a box. We are all part of this human experience called life, and I am so tired of hearing awful tragedies happen to people because of differences that are as happenstance as our nationality, the color of our skin, or the gender we were born in. Unity stems from being able to accept ourselves, accept the differences of those we see around us, and sharing our experiences. I invite each and every one of you tonight to start listening. Listen to the stories being shared around you. And you'll find that we're not as different as you think, or as others might want you to believe. And in the words of Felix Mendelssohn, the essence of beautiful is unity in variety. Have a good night.